it's a bit of a minefield, to be honest, because like everyone's got a slightly different take on it, but ultimately, like I think I would just say that it's a huge problem space, if that makes sense. And like I I want to kind of start at the beginning, and I feel like the most relevant or directly related to our team or whatever you want to call it is the very, very beginning bit, if that makes sense, which isn't exactly, it's not really how to solve the problem as such. It's kind of where to start and how to, yeah, how to get started, etc. Um, so what I kind of mean by that is we've got, you know, 800 engineers plus or whatever at GitLab, and hundreds of them, I think, and I hope, are working on trying to ensure that we've got agents.md, Claude.md, LLM.text, all the sort of stuff in there that will help agents solve problems, conform to our coding standards, find stuff, etc., etc. So I'm really interested in that and I want to help in that effort. And definitely where there's duplication, I want to try and help come up with nice solutions to address that duplication. And again, you'll remember the conversations we had about should we have a CI job that pushes a file, from a central repository into all of our other repositories, or should all of our repositories just have lots of files that simply have a URL that's almost like a redirect that tells the AI to read this central file, or so I want to be involved in that and etc. etc. But the very, very first step,
And
so
hold on, remind me. I remember we were talking about copying them from one to another. Did we ever discuss submodules?
we touched on it. We touched on it, and
I
funnily
know that's
enough, what was that? Sorry.
I know that's like not proper Git etiquette for submodules because they're like the bane of Git, but it might be an option.
Yeah, I must admit I don't know much about them. I asked the team if anyone had ever used them and whether it would be a good solution, and they sort of said no without going into any real detail on it.
Yeah,
Um,
there's
but
a lot of problems with them, but sometimes it can be a good option. So
Yeah, I think I'll kind of keep the idea on the table or whatever you want to call it, but it's yeah, it's a bit of a lower one in the stack at the moment. So, in true Lee style, I haven't put the detail that deserves, but what I have got is quite a good README. I hope that the AI created for me. So maybe I'll read through that before maybe giving my translation of what I've tried to do here. I'm hoping that the doc will actually cover most of it, but we'll give it a try. Um, so. What I've tried to build is an evaluation framework for testing how well AI coding agents guide new contributors through the contribution process. So the primary problem is when a new contributor uses an agent, open code, Claude code, cursor, etc. The agent often gives incorrect information or incomplete guidance, tells them to fork the repo, doesn't mention the sort of onboarding process, doesn't talk about the GDK, doesn't suggest to use the GLab CLI, all those kind of basic things. So we need a way to measure how well agents perform today so we can actually create some kind of baseline and data such that we can actually track whatever we do, does it have an impact? Again, that's been one of our sort of faults, or definitely one of my faults, I'm going to say, in the past. That I love, I feel like I've got a very strong gut instinct, and it hasn't kind of failed me too often in the past. However, I am very aware that I should be trying to make way more data-driven decisions. Um, so that's kind of like the primary thing. It's like, well, we need to get some data now, and we need to be able to do some kind of scientific, if that's, we'll debate that term later on, maybe, evaluation to see like if the things that we do improve or don't improve. So at the moment, it's saying that we're getting results by running 5 runs per agent against a specific GitLab issue. I've tried to keep a real simple GitLab issue because if the agent does kind of go down the rabbit hole of trying to solve it, I hope it won't, go too far, take too long, etc. But ultimately, I don't really want it to solve the issue. I want it to kind of tell me like how to get started as a new contributor. Um, so
So
I'm not going to
let me
show
ask,
you these numbers quite yet. Shall I? Shan't I? Yes, I do. Why not? Why not?
so let me ask this just before we go too far, and you may answer this already, but you're creating those issues and whatnot. Where are you expecting them to be like preview this, if that makes sense? Because you're creating a bot that the contributor puts into an issue into, right?
No, no. The whole the kind of starting point or assumption is that people new people won't know that that exists, so we can't really do that. I mean, maybe we could for people like if we can put the information out how to find that or how to get to that or how to start using that, etc. And everything discovers that if you try and use, Codex or open code or whatever, then maybe that would be the approach. But the first thing is we need to get right in the beginning of that funnel. You know, normal people are not gonna know that they can use the Duo CLI or the Web CLI or whatever tool or agent or framework or whatever you want to call it, that because they haven't got as far as onboarding. They don't know that onboarding even exists, right? So this is assuming that we've got someone that is already using AI. They've got one of the most popular tools, and they're going to ask it the question. So we need to sort of see now. There's a big question mark here as whether we've got any influence whatsoever. It might be that literally, like, we don't control the prompt because it's the contributor entering the prompt. We don't control the LLM because we don't know what LLM. We don't control the tool. We've got absolutely no control. So it might be that we write it off. Um, but I'm investigating it and seeing what we can do.
Okay.
So here is the prompt that I gave it. Tried to keep it very, so I didn't want to give it too many hints, right? Because again, you've got to assume that we're a brand new contributor. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know that you should be using GDK or forks or anything like that. And we just say, I want to contribute. Can you read this issue that I want to work on and let me know how to get started? And paste the work item link, issue link. So, you know, not giving it any hints at all, if you know what I mean. Really, just like here's a link. So let's go back to that README. So we've done that, we've done that, we've done that. I was just going to show you what the data looks like, although it's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. Um, but there's so I'm learning this all, so forgive me if I'm I don't know what the word is, like spreading false information, misinformation, but I hope that this is vaguely correct or accurate. There's I've heard within GitLab the term evals used, right? So for AI evaluation,
Hmm.
data, whatever you want to take, comparison, benchmarking, the term evals or evals or whatever, however you want to pronounce it. And one of the techniques for doing that is essentially that you basically give it checkpoints, sort of things that you want it to do, or we want to check against. But then you actually use a panel of AI judges to judge whether or not it actually did those things. Um, so here are the checkpoints that we've got. So checkpoints are things that we want it to do. So we want it to mention onboarding. So the response should tell the user that they need to onboard, sign up at contributors. The response should tell you to use a community fork and not to use a personal fork. The response should mention the GitLab CLI. Should mention like branch naming convention. Again, I've kind of picked these a bit randomly. These aren't set in stone at all. Um, should mention like the process of creating the MR, and should mention the GDK. So I've just kind of picked some random things to, as much as anything, see if I can actually teach myself how to build some evals and see how they
Mhm.
perform and can I influence them, etc. Even figuring out what our evaluation criteria checklist should be is like a big job in itself, right? So every little piece of this is quite a big piece of work. So, um, based on those checkpoints, let's ignore all of these for a moment and let's just look at the baseline. It's sort of saying that open code was scoring 29% as of today, essentially. Um, all of them mentioned the MR process and the GDK, i.e., all of the 5 runs, but none of them mentioned the onboarding, the community forks, the GLab CLI, etc., etc. Claude Code 23%. So this time, a couple of the runs did mention not to create a personal fork, but only 3 of the 5 runs mentioned the MR process and the GDK.
Okay.
And then this one, I don't know why it hasn't got a header. So if this one is open code, this one's Claude Code. I think this one should be Codex. And Codex has scored 49%. So again, slightly better. Um, oh no, this is Codex. I'm not going to read too much into what the difference between the two is. This was Codex 74% baseline, which seems incredibly high, which is very interesting. Um, so then what I've started to try and figure out is um, like, can I? So we know we have no control over the tool that they're using, hence why we've kind of, or why I've tried to make it so the evals run for 3 of the most popular codecs, Claude Code and Open Code. Um, they're using Claude Code to use it. I don't know exactly which. I think it said Sonnet, but I'm not 100% sure. Open Code, again, I'm not 100% sure, but it's using Anthropic. And then Codex is obviously OpenAI, but again, I don't know if it's GPT 5.5 or exactly what model it is. But even those, so we could, this evaluation framework could be insanely huge. We could have
Mhm.
like 5 different tools, each running 3 different LLMs, each running 5 different prompts, each, we this could just exponentially grow. But it's down to us to, I just want to get something working to start
I
with
mean,
and then figure.
how much of this data what that you have in here is from it training on the GitLab info, like training on like the agents.md versus is dynamically looking it up and doing tool calls to the web.
So, good question. Like part of this is probably to try and figure that out, but my sort of understanding and expectation at the moment is that these numbers are 0% from the agents.md because the LLMs and these, I don't know if we call them harnesses or AI coding tools, or I don't know what the correct term is, but they don't know, like you give them an issue or work item URL and they're not really clever enough to say, oh, that's a GitLab work item. That work item is associated with a repo. Let's start reading files from the repo. Let's see if it's got an agents.md,
Okay.
etc. They don't go that far. Um, and that raises a really interesting point because Claude Code wasn't even reading the issue URL. I had to tweak the prompt, which I feel like I've cheated a little bit. Um, but I had to tweak the prompt a little bit. I specifically had to say, "Can you read this issue?" My initial prompt just said something like, "I want to work on," and shared this
Right,
link.
right.
But Claude Code was not even reading the issue. Now, if it doesn't read the issue, then as far as I'm concerned, like we have almost zero impact and ability to influence how well the tool answers the question. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's where my question was how much of it's doing it based off what has already been trained on, because some of it's going to get incorporated because you know the how often does GitLab get hit with web scrapers anymore?
Yes. So, and that's a really interesting one. Again, it's going to be another huge rabbit hole in itself is understanding, um, like, can you, I presume that the models are all closed, so there's no way you can actually like look and see what's inside the model, but like understanding if we're like, how do we even know the knowledge that it's got that it's used to answer? So like where I showed you that I think it was Codex was hitting 74%. It was like really good, really successful without even like starting to tweak and refine and improve and whatever you want to call it. So presumably that information is all coming from like the LLM, the model, the training data itself. But then it's like, where's that coming from? Is it from the GitLab handbook? Is it from the GitLab repo? Is it from the GitLab website? Like, do you know what I mean? So again, a huge bit of research there that we can do at some point to try and see if we can learn a bit more about where's the information that it's learned from at the moment, how can we influence it, how quickly, like if we, let's say if we figured out that it's because it's reading the handbook and that's where it's getting its contribution guidance from, and we make changes to update and fix and improve the handbook guidance, will that come out in the next release of Sonnet and the next release of GPT, etc., or like, is it down to luck whether next time actually it doesn't train from the handbook? It ignores it entirely. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's why it's a mad, mad bit of work that we're doing. Anyway, um, so we've got our checkpoints, we've got our couple of different tools, coding tools, OpenAI, Codex, etc. So here's what I think is clever. Maybe it's not, but and again, I'm not aware. I've got a call with someone else, another team member at GitLab tomorrow to understand how they do some of their evals. Um, the difference there is that they, I think, are more evaluating the prompt, which is much, much easier, right? Because if you can control the prompt, like, yeah, you've got a lot more control, and it's like a single variable, and it's yeah, you've got control of that. So I'm going to chat to them to understand a bit more. Like, I think they've got a tool that they use. It's way, way easier. But what we're
Well,
doing
we can't really prompt and control what the people prompt with, right?
exactly, exactly. I mean, we
So
can certainly put guidance in the handbook, and we could maybe put guidance at the top of every issue to say, if you're going to use AI to try and solve this, use this prompt. Like we could do something like that by all means. Um, but that is, reliant on people seeing that and following that sort of thing.
ooh,
So that's definitely that can be an answer to this. Like if we find out that, just tweaking this prompt a tiny bit, um, that like yeah improves the results like 10x or whatever it does, then that why not try it, why not do it, do you know what I mean?
right.
um so yeah, what I then wanted to do to try and be clever is okay, so this issue might mutate, if that makes sense. This live GitLab issue might mutate, like new labels might get added to it. Someone might close it, someone might solve it, someone might change the description. There's all sorts of things that could happen. So
Sure.
I wanted to try and what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Isolate? I don't know what you want to call it. Like, yeah, control, isolate. So I've actually injected a proxy into my sort of evaluation harness thingamy-bob, which basically takes traffic that's trying to hit this issue URL, the work item URL, and actually returns a kind of mock or a stub. So that allows us to experiment with
And that's where you can use your cassettes that you like using, right?
pretty much. I mean, it's not using VCR, the same tool we use in the Ruby specs, etc., but it's exactly where I got the idea from.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so whilst we can't control the prompt, what we
Control
can
the
control,
data
and I'm
you
not
shove.
quite. What was that? Sorry.
You can control the data you shove into the bit.
Yeah, exactly. The injection.
That's clever.
I think this. Yeah, I think this is an example. So, um, V2 of the. So I did like V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, playing with different bits and pieces, and V2 was where I tried. So let's go back to V1. Sorry for skipping backwards and forwards, but let's say. Um, seems to be. It shouldn't really be looking in here. I'm a bit confused by this. I think I might have screwed it up a little bit. Oh, I don't know. Um, basically, one of them, I think it might be because I need to expand these. So at the moment, you know, the things with the links that we have at the top of every issue say something like everyone can contribute. Like, if you want to get started, you can help label this issue or work on this issue, and like it gives you links to the contributor platform to like assign yourself,
Yeah.
etc.
And I do have a question on that related to that that we can cover once we're done here. So,
Okay, okay. Um, So, yeah, so that's our opportunity to potentially where we're already injecting something, but we could tweak what we're injecting. Now, I think that we really, really don't want to put any more than what we're already putting in, if that makes sense. Like 3 or 4 bullets, 20 words, something like that, not a lot.
right, we want
But
to keep it very short.
yeah, because we're using like precious real estate of the issue, and again, I don't know how like indexes and the AI triages them and various other bits and pieces, but I don't think we want to put too much stuff on there. Um, but during my testing, I was like, I want to see what happens if I explicitly list. So these are pretty much, this is my checklist, my 7 items that my test harness, my evals are actually testing to see if AI, mentions the onboarding process, mentions the GLab CLI, says not to fork the repo, etc., etc. So I put those like plain as day. Well, I say plain as day, they're still in a collapsible section, but I injected them directly in V1, and then in V2, I didn't inject them directly. I put them in like a central file somewhere, and then in the header, I said read how to contribute and earn points in the contributor guidelines, and then like reference this central markdown file, etc. So yeah, essentially I've got this kind of magic harness now that can go and it can run all these different evaluations using the mock. The one of the very only things that we have control over, as I say, is the issue content itself. So I'm just trying, well, what happens if I modify that issue content and I include this or I show this or I hide this or whatever. So it's really just, like I say, the most important thing here is really getting a baseline and being able to test this over time. I don't know what the one thing or 10 things or 100 things are that we're going to um, try and change. Um, but what was really interesting is, yeah, that where did I get to with it? That like Claude Code and Codex, I had a bit of influence, but realistically, I wasn't getting that number up like a huge amount.
Hmm.
Um, but open code, I was able to get to 100%. Like it seems way more, um, I don't know, a lot quicker to fetch the issue and use the content of the issue to sort of answer your question or whatever you want to call it. Like the other ones seem hesitant to fetch the issue, and if they do fetch the issue, like they had challenges around actually sort of reading what we were trying to hint at it to read, sort of thing. But it was fun, and that now runs as well. Like, so I was playing with it locally. Maybe somewhat obvious. I don't know if it is or not, but AI pretty much wrote all of this. I just kept prompting it what I wanted, um, and it cracked on. So there's three Docker files that pretty much like one for each of the different AI tools. And I use quite a cool, or I hope it's quite cool and clever CI pipeline. I mean, it's fairly basic, but using the old parallel matrix to sort of say run this for open code, Claude, and Codex, and then a sort of two-dimensional matrix for the evals. So for each of these three agents or coding tools or whatever, we then run, I picked these three random ones, but obviously we can do whatever we want. And then there's a final job that kind of pulls all of the evals from all of these jobs, um, pulls them together into a final report, and we can sort of see what that looks like. So if I look at any one of these, um, interesting. Guess go back to this one. If I look at any one of these, I can see for this specific, um, I don't know what you want to call it, cassette or scenario. For Claude Code, we did 5 runs. This is how long each of those runs took. So again, even the time information might be interesting to sort of include somewhere. And then this was the sort of percentage for each of the checkpoints, and then the overall percentage, and then that's all pulled together into this report here, which I think was the one that I showed you on the actual MR page itself. Yeah, so it's for each of the tools, for each of the scenarios, your baseline, different scenarios, um, and here are all of the numbers sort of thing. So I thought that was pretty cool. That in I don't know how long it took. I want to say like an afternoon slash evening, I was able, or AI was able to build that kind of test harness, evaluation harness, suite, automation, including sort of the CI pipeline to run it all.
Were you using open code for a lot of this then to build it?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting, funny, I don't know, good, bad, whatever. That I found like open code to be the most, I don't know what you want to call it, that the best out of the three of them, especially when given some pointers. Um, I think, yeah, I mentioned earlier that Claude Code, like I even if I didn't reword, like I've cheated really. If I didn't reword that prompt, I was getting basically 0% for even like obviously if it was failing to read the issue, the work item, then these would be exactly the same as this because it just wasn't getting any of that additional context that I was trying to give it, injecting it into the issue or work item.
Okay.
Um, and I think, what else did I have to do? I also had to, for Claude Code, there's a little bit of a, call it a hack, if you will. Um, so with the other two, and again, I might need to refine this a little bit. We just ask it the question and then we judge its response. Claude Code seems very quick to ask you clarifying questions, which really screws it up because it's not going to give you any of the answers or hit any of your checkpoints if it just asks you a clarifying question. So I had to add some sort of logic in here. I thought it was Claude Code. Um,
Yeah, I found doing just comparison between Claude and open code. Open code is a lot more autonomous, if that makes sense.
yes, yes, it does. So yeah, for Claude Code, I actually had to basically add a sort of follow up, like bake a follow up in. So it asks, it sends the initial prompt, and then when it gets a response, it sends a follow up that basically just says, just try your best to give me the steps. because we just don't know what qualifying questions it might be asking us, it might be sort of saying, like, are you a new contributor? Do you have GDK? So it could be asking anything. Um, but I don't even want to try and start using AI to read its response and to respond to its response, and etc. We're in big enough inception as it is with all of this. But it was really fun exercise, and like definitely sort of highlighting all of the variables and factors at play here and how we have so little influence on most of them. But I'm really happy that we've got a repeatable, or whatever you want to call it, way of measuring. Um, yeah, so we can essentially um, make changes, not make changes, whatever. We can just monitor this over time and see, even does it improve where in the latest versions of the LLMs. Like maybe we run all of these. We specifically tell it to use maybe Sonnet the latest and Opus the latest and GPT the latest and um, I don't know what I'm forgetting. Some other one. Um, and then when the new one comes out, we can see, well, has it got better or worse, etc. So, um, like, I'm happy having explored this and having managed to get AI to build, even if it did use Python, which I'm not comfortable with, but I do know it's kind of the language of choice when it comes to AI stuff.
Yep.
So forgive me for my rant, but yeah, it was fun, and I thought you might like to hear. And
Yeah,
then well, obviously with
I,
streaming,
that's very interesting stuff. So I
awesome.
found it
I'm
very
glad I didn't put you to sleep. So you said at some point there that you had sort of a follow-up question.
yes. So one of the questions that you had, or that you had mentioned, so we add once someone creates an issue, we put in that header at the top of the screen, right? Saying
Yes.
this is how you can contribute, label, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
So going through some of the old or some of the issues in the backlog, I found that there's quite a few that are just like templates. You know how you have like the default template in GitLab where the
Yeah.
issue template. And so because there's like 7 or 8 per week that have found just in the main GitLab repository,
Hmm.
not including like any of the other subgroups and whatnot.
Hmm.
Is there any sort of automation that we could put into the system to go ahead and say, hey, hi, contribute, or hi, person, did you mean to leave this template blank or that sort of thing? So I did create an issue in the, not Rubocop, what's the other one? The Danger, asking if anyone could think of if that would be sufficient because I don't want to waste engineering time or CI time creating something like that if there's
Yeah.
a solution.
Yeah, so it's interesting. And again, I don't know, were you thinking of it being AI based or not particularly? Or
I was just even put not even AI based. I think it's as simple as we just add into Danger a way to pull all the current templates and do a comparison. But that little template thing that we add in throws a wrench into just doing like a diff, if that makes sense.
yeah, so if I'm totally honest, I don't think I, I don't think comparing the whole thing is going to work really anyway, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Um, just because, like, whatever tool or technique we use, like, let's say we use search and we run an API command once a day that searches for all the issues that are using the template and then just closes them with a message to say, like, you know, you didn't enter a description, please can you enter one? Or maybe it doesn't close it, maybe it puts a label on it and closes it in a week if they still haven't, or a month or whatever. I don't think searching for like a fairly lengthy string with carriage returns and etc 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 is particularly going to work. Um, but I'm not entirely sure how like because even this, it's like, well, you could search for part of it, but then someone might leave some of the template in there, right?
Right.
Um,
So that's where I was thinking, do the you'll need some sort of oh, what's the algorithm called? I just implemented it like back in
some kind
January.
of fuzziness or
Yes. So there's an algorithm that you put in and it tells you how many character substitutions away until you get to the right thing.
oh, it was really funny that I can't remember exactly what it is. Algorithm.
I want to say it's Lund's algorithm, but that's not, no, that's not it.
It's not really string searching, is it? Let's call it fuzzy matching algorithm. Again, forgive my random story, but I'm going to give you one in a minute.
Hamming, is it the Hamming Levenstein? Levenstein.
Yes, yes. So the reason that I should have known that and that it sort of brought back some kind of PTSD when I was very, very young. I mean, yeah, a long, long time ago, one of the first bits of code that I wrote, I actually built like a weird sort of open source, like contact deduplication system
Okay.
that you basically gave it a load of contact records and it kind of used that to compare all the records and sort of say, oh, well, you know, this one was an 80% match, just this was John instead of Jonathan, or this one there was a typo, it was Jonathan with an O, this one was Jonathan with an A, and all that kind of stuff. So I remember at length doing a lot of stuff, and there were different algorithms and different techniques and stuff. But yeah, flashbacks that was.
Yeah, I just wrote a program that takes so this was back in December that I wrote this, but it was taking the output from a AI camera because we have
Yeah.
put AI into everything now. And it was saying, "Hey, this is what we think is here." Mind you, a simple OCR could have done this, but whole different issue. But they had this camera that like 50 feet away from the camera, so it takes a little bit of distance
Hmm.
and it takes a look and then it fed me the output and then I had to determine is this the chemical that's actually in the container or not? And
Cool.
then if it's not, we throw a flag because some of these chemicals are could level a village, so if mixed strong.
Wow. Um, I just noticed, sorry, forgive me, Leon. If you have anything you wanted to chat about or whatever, feel free to give us a shout. Me and Jim are just diving into some random bits and pieces, but the forum is yours, the floor is yours. If there's anything you want to dive in, talk about, look at, let us know. Um, so yeah, I like that approach, Jim. I definitely think what's really interesting is I'd forgotten. I thought the standard template was something completely different, but I guess I'm so used to like maybe templates like well, I don't know, maybe it's the default one. I feel like the default one is probably the most likely, right?
Yep. So that one I would say is probably the most one, but I do see some of the other ones. Like, and what prompted this, like I said, is last week I think I saw 7 or 8 of these suckers, and it's not just like the same person, but it's multiple all the time. So that's why.
Yeah. What I find tricky, frustrating, annoying, whatever you want to call it, is I know for a fact that a lot of teams do when they create new issues, they just kind of create placeholders, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So let's say that I've got like a an epic. Let's say this is an epic. Um, and I just go in and I do new sub sort of like create issues from an epic, and I just do, if I do that and do create, I think it uses that default template.
Does it?
So I think so. I don't really want to do it, but let me do it anyway. Um,
Okay, I do see one that I'm going to go close right now.
what was that? Sorry.
I do see one that I'm going to go close though right now.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool. So I'm not sure if task is going to do it. Let's try it anyway. I feel
Well,
like adding an issue to an epic almost certainly would, but I'm not sure. Okay, so task hasn't. But this is in a different project, so it has used our default issue template. So yes, that's exactly what it does. So that is a sort of scenario where I don't particularly think it's acceptable, if that makes sense. I still think there's ownership on the person who created it to flesh it out. But we possibly or probably want to give them a bit of leeway. Like I say, maybe after 24 hours, we give it a nudge, and then after a month, if there's still no description, we close it or something. Um, but yeah, I see what you're saying. It's quite hard to do something deterministic there. But it also seems a bit of a waste for AI. Um,
right, and that's why I was thinking we do something like Levenstein first, and then we can go ahead and feed it to AI saying, "Hey, take this plus that, and tell us if you think it's good enough."
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple of things that are going through my mind. One is that we triage all issues with AI anyway. So if it's for new issues, and I have myself seen this, and let's see if I can prove myself right and or wrong. So some of these new issues have just been created. Um, The issue title and description contain no meaningful content. The title appears to be random characters and the description is just the default issue template. So our AI has already identified this. So I feel like there could be a really easy, this isn't going to solve the problem in its entirety because there's going to be old issues that we need to clean up, but maybe we can find an easy way. Because I think once we've cleaned up the backlog and the old issues, that if AI can pick up all the new ones,
Yep,
maybe we're good. But maybe we just need to
and
have a new instruction in this prompt that sort of says if you believe that the um so first of all, I think we should use it for spam or junk or whatever you want to call it. So this one where both the title and the content are useless, then I think we should just close it. Um, if the title is looks like it could be helpful, but the content is just a template, then I think we should use a sort of labeling system where we maybe add like automation template or blank template or something like that, that then another triage ops process. So, the AI can say, looks like you haven't filled in. This is just using the default template. Please, can you fill it in? If you don't, like in a week or a month or whatever, we'll close the issue. And then another triage ops automation that doesn't need to use AI um, can go and check and see if anyone's updated it since then. Or it could use AI. I'm sort of either or. You know what I mean?
is there a spam label? I know there's like a bunch of spam labels, but are they actually used?
Good question. I don't know that, and I would probably say. Um, that I would use AI to maybe look in the handbook or somewhere and sort of see if we've got any documented sort of process or whatever you want to call it for
Because
that sort of thing.
I'm half tempted and to just create a, you know how when we have the close issue
Hmm.
thing on the what I want to call it web UI, but I know that's wrong, the contributor platform, I
Yep.
would be half interested to just say, hey, make a new option that says spam or off topic or something.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I feel like we probably need to differentiate to some extent. So this I feel like could be a test. Someone poking around, like, yes, it's junk, it's noise, it's whatever, but it's not really spam, it's not phishing, it's not malicious
Right.
as far as
And
I
that's
can see.
that's where you would put like off topic or something.
Yeah, exactly. Because if this was like, if there was links to like a casino in here, or if I looked at this person's profile and saw a whole load of dodgy stuff, then I would be going straight to the report abuse option. Um, so yeah, it's kind of slightly different. I don't know what you want to call it, processes or whatever. Um, but yeah, I think that that could work. But the really interesting thing is that we've already got every single issue that's being created. I think the only exception is if somebody does add a group label and a type label when they create the issue, then this automation won't pick it up. But if either of these labels are missing, then this automation will try and automatically process them. And I would say if they've already added these two labels, I'm fairly confident that it's not junk or spam or like that we probably want to keep it.
And that's where I think we is it easy enough to just add some sort of automation where if it can't figure it out because it says it can't determine what it is, right? Contains no meaningful content. Is
Yeah,
that something that we just
exactly. I think
keyword off
so
of?
this has got a link to this is what I love about the and again not to blow my own trumpet too much, but I remember adding this functionality quite some time ago to the triage ops project, so it automatically suffixes every like automated bot message, whatever the processor, with a link back to the processor so you can find out exactly where that automation's coming from if you want to tweak it. So yeah, in here, um, not massively helpful, but you follow the trail, so to speak. So we have a look and see, well, um, what's it doing? So it's calling issue triage AI comment. And if we look for that,
I was
that
trying
comes.
to debug this the other day and follow it, and I got like 12 files deep, and I'm like,
Honestly, like I think you've seen us do it on some of the office hours, etc. But if you're not playing with AI, or open code specifically, like I've been blown away. Like the
I
last,
was using what is it, the new uh not Rust project. What's the other one? The that replaced Rust project?
oh, the knowledge graph thing or something.
Yes, Knowledge Graph.
Awesome,
I was
awesome.
playing
Glad
with that,
to.
and that blew me away because of just how well it did.
Awesome. I'm really, really happy to hear that. Like if there's anything you can share,
The
whether it be in
only
Discord, whether it be in Slack, whether it be in an issue or whatever. But
the
yeah,
only
that's
time I
something.
do it is every time I'm in there, I'm learning something new because it changes so much so
Right.
quickly. So
So this is something that I think is only enabled for team members, but it might be enabled for everyone in GitLab org or something. But shout if it's not appearing for you and you want to have a look at it, poke with it, etc. I can enable it. Probably find I've blooming well broken it now, but so this is powered by the knowledge graph. So whenever you're in a file, it sort of basically finds all of the methods defined in there or the symbols or whatever the sort of technical AST type terminology is, and then you can kind of find the code paths and callers and other bits and pieces. But yeah, there's a lot of time and effort going into that at the moment. I think we're going to be demoing some pretty cool stuff soon. Jumping back to this very quickly, I think that So this is the issue triage helper. We've then got the AI triage helper. The AI triage helper is where the prompt is. And I think that we should um, add something to this prompt to basically and add something to the JSON response that comes back to say specifically like is it using the default? Does it appear to be using a default or empty like template or whatever? Is there nothing meaningful in
Or
there?
would we have to make something that goes and passes all the default templates into there? Or do you think AI is smart enough to figure that out itself?
Well, so it figured it out here. Um, I'm tempted to try like the less work we have to do, the better, right?
Right. And
So
that's
if
why
we
I'm
can,
thinking maybe just ask it, hey, give it a percentage of 1 to 100 of how off topic this is, and then go from there.
yeah, yeah,
How
pretty
would we
much.
go about testing that though, since triage ops is special?
Okay, so it's not actually terribly hard. So Leon was just asking about if this I think is referring to this is public. Yeah, it all is. So the if it was a merge request we were talking about earlier, again, what I can do is drop in the Zoom just a few links and tell me if I haven't shared what you need or want or whatever. And we can share something later. But yeah, sorry, I've lost my train of thought there.
So we were talking about how to test this.
Yes, yes. So you can reasonably easily, if you clone this project locally, there's I want to say reasonably good instructions for local. Got a feeling they got moved. Dark. I mean, is it the worst idea to?
Because it says how to set it up, but and run tests like RSpec, but because we're integrating it with a specific one, that's where I'm just confused on, because it's not like we have a test environment that we could easily spin up for a ticket, right?
Really know how this magic search works. Uh, okay, this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted. Um, Judge Ops report section scheduled. So I think this. So you can pull this project down, and he's. I'm sure he used to call it run locally, but anyway, you can pull it down and you can run any of these policies locally. Um, So, what I guess you would want to do is find a way to somewhat isolate the issues you want it to run on.
Okay.
Um, so, whether you sort of gave it a date range so that you knew it had picked this up, or whether you said where the author is this person, or where the label is something, or whatever you wanted to do to somehow curate and give it a small list of issues that you wanted it to plow over. Or you could just say do all of them for the last couple of days, and I guarantee there will be some in there. And when you run it with the dry run flag, see if I can find any recent. So that's another thing. Actually, you don't even need to run it locally. You can even do it in the pipeline. So if I find a merge
Can
request, sorry, go.
you run it in the pipeline directly?
You can, yeah. Let me find a recent merge request and hopefully.
Because I'm trying to think, because we're doing an API token, what model do we use and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, good question. I think that what would happen if you ran it without providing the token, that it would error. So when you do the um, dry run schedule or custom or whatever it would be, you'd have to put in, like the Anthropic API key or whatever it might be. Um, so I guess that is where it comes a little bit tricky. Obviously, for team members, we've got access to keys. I don't know, like you get full access to Anthropic via the Duo agent platform, but like we can't really provide keys. I don't know if you have access to keys yourself and or how
Not
expensive that is or isn't. Um, but like if you were to push up an MR and wanted me to run the job, excuse me, I'd be more than happy to do that. I was hoping I'd find, I'm sure I can find an MR. I'll check a few. Um, hoping that there's one where somebody has run the dry run, but might be wishful thinking. But I've definitely used it many times in the past.
yeah, it's
Uh,
getting all the dependencies of something like this set up is the hard part. So
yeah, it hasn't been. Yeah, yeah, pretty much, pretty much. And yeah, like you say, there's that is really the only one. The GitLab API token almost is irrelevant because when you run it in dry run mode, as long as it can read the API, which you don't even need an API token to do. So it's actually, the majority of this is easy and that to get set up locally, but it is that AI API key
okay,
that's gonna be the challenging one. Um, yeah.
cool. Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. No worries. Thanks for letting me chew your ear off for an hour and pleasure as always and catch up with you next week.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
And thanks for joining, Leon. Have a great day.